You could threaten my mother!
Hello my trigger happy friends, my name is Stevie Cade and thank you for joining me as I continue my review series of all the live action Superman movies, also including all the live action Batman movies that lead up to my review for Batman v Superman. This has been a very long review series, a lot of movies, a lot of Batman and Superman movies. But before we get started, if you could, hit that subscribe button and the little bell ding thing so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Alright guys, grab your keyboards, head down to the comments section and let's review Man of Steel. When Zack Snyder entered the DCEU, or what wasn't even going to be the DCEU at the time, but, well, we'll get into that in BVS. I'm not going to lie, I've actually been very intimidated to review this movie, mostly because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I had to kind of get nitpicky about stuff, kind of dive into things a little deeper, and it was a huge undertaking. For those of you who know me and know how I do my reviews, I take notes. I have 20 pages of notes for Man of Steel, so prepare yourselves, guys. We got a long review ahead of us. Oh boy. And I'm going to be comparing to the older movies a lot in this review. So let's jump in immediately to what I like about this film, which is a lot. But to start all off, the opening scene on Krypton. Not Krypton, Marlon Brando. This movie really dove deep into the Kryptonian way of life, the mythology behind Krypton. Unlike the 1978 Superman film, this one really dives deep into the connection between Jor-El and Zod, really setting some ground and foundation that leads us through the rest of the movie. There's a much deeper connectivity between Zod and Superman than just being from the same planet. And we learn about Krypton's artificial population control.
We've had a child, Zod. A boy child. Krypton's first natural birth in centuries.
It makes him not just special on Earth, but also special on Krypton, giving him more of that chosen one aspect. And the planet itself is absolutely beautiful. Unlike the 1978 movie, we just got a weird looking, cold, desolate Krypton. That's what it was. It was just cold, desolate, alone, lonely. It looked like you didn't even want to live there. But this Krypton is alive. It looks like a paradise, a fool's paradise. As it seems, the Kryptonian leaders are in denial of their impending doom. Zack Snyder really knew how to build this world and make sense of it. You can see the ignorance of the Kryptonian leaders and how they got to this point. They're fools. They lived in a fool's paradise, like I said. And diving deep into those backstories and that mythology really hits home when Krypton implodes. It's not just like, okay, well, get Superman out of here, fuck that planet. It's, wow, you feel what Kal-El has lost. You feel what the whole planet has lost. And that's something I haven't felt in any of the movies before. Matter of fact, the movies previously, I just kind of thought Kryptonians were just assholes. Like, thank God they sent Kal-El away. They should have sent Kal-El away even if the planet wasn't going to implode because it was such a stupid planet. That's how I felt about the previous movies. This one, not so bad. Still idiots, but, you know, I don't, hate them in this one. But the story was being told so well that we were given so much information, and it was a pretty long sequence at the beginning, but it didn't feel like it ran too long for me. It was a fascinating world to dive into. It captivated my attention the entire time. Now, Clark Kent himself. We get introduced to Clark Kent as the Wanderer. Now, in the 1978 film, we kind of catch a glimpse into the Wanderer with Christopher Reeve Superman, but this movie really utilizes and embellishes on that aspect. We don't only get to meet Clark Kent and get to know the world around him as he discovers it, but it also establishes the grounded real-world aspect that this movie's trying to express. So we see Clark traveling from job to job, situation to situation, looking for himself. But meanwhile, the movie also gives us a glimpse into his childhood, through intermittent, flashbacks, and the struggles that he had to deal with being different growing up. He was an outcast. People made fun of him. We learn more about Clark Kent's development in the first 40 minutes of this film than we do in all previous 5 films. It's amazing how well this story is being told. And the flashback sequences, much like the beginning of the movie, didn't really bog down the pacing of the movie at all. It was very smooth, even, and kept my interest the entire time, because Zack Snyder knows how to tell a story. And those flashbacks actually interwove the Kents, you know, Jonathan and Martha Kent, so we get to learn more about them as well, which leads me to Jonathan Kent, played by Kevin Costner. They took some of the integrity that Jor-El had, and they gave some of those to Jonathan Kent. So all the fatherly advice that Superman has gotten in the previous films from Jor-El is actually being split up between Jor-El and Jonathan Kent in this film, giving Jonathan Kent more of that father role than he ever had before. And it shows us how Jonathan Kent raised Clark into being the man that he was. One of the most impactful lines of the movie is,
You just have to decide what kind of man you want to grow up to be, Clark, because whoever that man is, good character or bad, he's going to change the world.
and then we see Martha Kent helping Clark hone his skills, or not really hone them, but how to handle them. And it was pretty impactful to me when Clark Kent came back from finding that old Kryptonian outpost ship and, you know, learning about his heritage and his father. And he comes back and he tells Martha, you know, I found my parents. Martha's reaction to that is something that I can actually relate to in my own personal life. Without diving too deep into it, I spent most of my life not knowing who my natural father's side of the family was. My natural father passed away when my mom was pregnant, and for stories I'm not going to go into right now, I just never met that side of the family. So when I turned 18, I actually went and found that side of the family and interact with them. I met my grandparents for the first time, met my aunts, uncles, my stepdad, who has been my stepdad since I was a baby. He acted the way that Martha did. You know, he was happy for me, but you could also feel that heaviness.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you, Clark.
It was so parallel with something that I had experienced in my life, and it really, really means a lot to me that they expressed that so well in this movie. Then we have Jor-El, played by Russell Crowe, and fucking Russell Crowe, man, you are Jor-El. See, I never really liked Marlon Brando as Jor-El, and I didn't really know why until I saw this Jor-El. This Jor-El is helpful. I don't know, it sounds bad. I don't like the little ice crystal things. I don't like them. I don't like the projection, you know, these were pre-recorded things, or whatever those ice crystal things are. I'm not a fan of that aspect of it. This whole downloading the consciousness thing, perfect. Get rid of the crystal, bring in the Superman key thing. That is a perfect modern take on the old story without really changing too much besides the cosmetics of it and tweaking it for a more modern story. Using Jor-El's uploaded consciousness is brilliant. You know, you can actually see Clark Kent or Kal-El or Superman, or I'll just interchange those names throughout this review, actually talking, having a conversation with another human or Kryptonian. I mean, you know what I mean. It gives him a beautiful history lesson, by the way. Those little liquid bead things, I don't know what they are, but it's such a cool shot to watch. Let's talk Lois Lane. My thoughts on Margot Kidder, Lois Lane, are not good. If you've been following this review series, you know this. This Lois Lane is what Lois Lane should be. This is a reporter Lois Lane. Take no bullshit, balls to the wall Lois Lane. She's one badass chick. Amy Adams' performance is one of major confidence, which is what is realistically needed in a world that is man-driven, honestly. And you can tell that she knows this, and she knows how to pierce right through that by, well, just being one of the guys almost.
If we're done measuring dicks, can you have your people show me what you found?
And they play into her actual journalism skills, into her figuring out who Superman is, or he's not Superman at the time, but who this alien that saved her life really is. That's how she finds Clark Kent, by using her journalistic skills. That's awesome. And she knows that Clark Kent is this person before he ever becomes Superman, and that is fucking awesome, because one of my biggest issues with any Superman series or comic things or movies or whatever is that Lois Lane never knew who Superman was. And I think that really downplayed Lois Lane's intelligence. She's not a dumb woman. How can we have her play this incredibly smart, super awesome journalist who can't see that the man that she's in love with is also a man that she worked with on a day-to-day basis? That doesn't make sense to me. So her knowing Superman's identity, I think, is perfect. That makes sense for this world. But they do still hide Clark's identity pretty well in this movie, and I don't mean like from everybody else, I mean from the audience, at least for me. Like that scene when Lois Lane shows up to the Antarctica, or wherever, I forget where they are, you know, where they find the Kryptonian ship, and she tells that worker, be careful, my bag is heavy. I didn't know that was Clark Kent. I had to be told that that was Clark Kent. He actually shows up a couple of times, a little bit more obvious than other times, but my point is, I didn't even recognize him as a regular Joe. So it's not too far-fetched that people in this world wouldn't recognize him as Superman as a casual passing. And even though this movie doesn't really harp onto him hiding his identity until the very end of the film, but Zack Snyder did prove that you could hide somebody in plain sight. The very subtle horror movie elements that this movie flirts with, I thought were just used so well and paced well throughout the entire film. You got the death of Jor-El, you got that flickering light, it's almost like a horror movie. Or when the outpost ship rises from the ice, again, it's almost like a horror movie. And lastly, and probably the most intense, is when Zod returns. It's a very strong horror element, and as a horror fan, I really enjoyed that they added that in there. It gave you a new tone that no Superman movie has ever had. Well, this whole movie is a new tone that Superman never had, and it's a much needed one in my opinion, especially after coming out of all the previous films. This movie, I just can't. See, this is why I have to watch myself on, because I will sit here and like suck this movie's dick for the rest of the review if I allow myself. I might edit that out. I might not. I just said that. My point is, this movie reminds you that this is not your mom and dad's Superman. And speaking of Zod's return, this one actually makes sense. In Superman 2, Zod's team just randomly shows back up. Like, they're just floating through space in the Phantom Zone glass flat sheet thingy, you know, just happen to be flying by Earth when Superman throws the thing out there and it explodes and releases them from the Phantom Zone. Man, what a big coincidence to make all that happen. And then Zod comes down to Earth to be like, Earth, I'm going to conquer this place because of reasons. This story with Zod in this movie makes a lot more sense. Krypton's destruction is what released him from the Phantom Zone. And then Clark's accidentally setting off the distress beacon, and the outpost ship is how they knew where Kal-El was. Because they knew Kal-El had been sent somewhere, and once they got that distress beacon, they're like, bet that's him. And they were right. This makes sense. This is not just a random happening. Superman 2, God, what a fuck. Go watch my review for that, please, because I don't want to talk about it anymore. But let's talk about Zod himself. First of all, Michael Shannon. This is one of the best performances in the entire movie. Zod has so much conviction. You understand his side of things to a degree. You feel sorry for him to a degree because you know it's not really his fault. He was cropped. He was molded. He was born to be this, and that's why he is. He's a product of a Kryptonian failure. That makes you feel bad for him. At least it made me feel bad for him.
And now, I have no people. My soul. That is what you have taken from me.
And he's the polar opposite of Kal-El, which in a sense has a free will. He's not a part of that Kryptonian design as he was the first natural birth in a very long time. And some could even argue that Zod is jealous because of that. But when it comes to Superman 2, I still to this day cannot tell you why Zod did what he did. Besides just, I'm a bad guy doing bad guy things. Again, watch my review for that one. And then we have Zod's CGI suit. It's CGI. I had to be told that also. I had no fucking clue that that suit was CGI. Now that I know, there are certain shots and angles where I'm like, okay, now I can tell only because I know. Before, if I didn't know, I would never even think to look for it, and I would never think that that suit was CGI. I mean, the suit itself is not what looks CGI, even in the parts that I noticed. It's more of the, you know, the connection of the head. Some of the movements aren't 100%. I'm literally talking like seconds of footage where I'm like, that looked a little rubbery. But other than that, it's almost flawless. And speaking of suits, this is the best Superman suit ever, hands down, including the future films, including all the past films. This is the best suit in my opinion. The big S chest emblem, the desaturated color palette, the velvet cape, no undies. This suit looks good. It's not something that was made for him on Earth. It was something that was given to him, passed down from his Kryptonian ancestors, pretty much. It's an old House of El suit, which, now that I think about it, is kind of a coincidence that the outpost ship would have a House of El suit on it. I never really thought about that until just a second, but If that's the only huge coincidence we have in this movie, we're good. But some people prefer the Batman v Superman suit. I do not, but again, I will discuss that in that review. The third act of this film is amped up to 11. It is balls to the wall, which is a very Zack Snyder thing to do. I can't believe people have issues with this part of the movie. Like, you know, oh, Superman, he destroyed the city. No, he saved the planet. Why can't people connect that? You know, at this point in the film, you have to understand this is no longer a Superman film. This is a movie about an alien invasion and the guy who saved the planet from that happening, who just happens to also be an alien from that same planet. This is a story of world domination. Zod is terraforming the fucking planet. He saved the planet at the sacrifice of a handful of people's lives and the destruction of Metropolis. I mean, you gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet, right? My point is, he saved the planet. A city being destroyed is not that bad of a trade-off to save the planet, in my opinion. I don't understand why people flipped out about this. Plus, he's not Superman yet. I mean, well, he's Superman now, but like, he had never been Superman before. He had never done this before. But Stevie, he could have been more conscientious fighting with Zod, you know, to protect the people. Okay, yeah, maybe he could have. But all that went away when Zod threatened his mom. You do not threaten Superman's mom. What if this guy came down from another planet and decided, hey, I'm going to threaten your mom? You kind of start seeing red and you just start doing shit. And that's what happened. Even when he first attacked Zod, he's beating him through the cornfield. You think you could threaten my mother? Like, you don't fuck with Superman's mom, dude. You don't do that. Now, lastly on my what I like list, and it's lastly because I'm making myself make it be the last thing, because again, I will just end up telling you the whole movie. Henry Cavill as Superman. His character comes across as wholesome and humble as Reeves, but in a much more grounded way. Claiming that Cavill is not a good Superman or a Clark Kent, to me, holds no merit. It's, to me, you're just comparing him to Christopher Reeve, and because he's not Christopher Reeve, then he's not a good Superman, because he's not playing Christopher Reeve. I mean, Brandon Ruth played the Christopher Reeve Superman. Y'all didn't like him either. Get that Christopher Reeve out of your head for this movie. This is not that Superman. You have to let go of that for this film. And once you do, you're going to enjoy this Superman a lot more. I promise you that. Now, some things that I'm on the fence about when it comes to this film. Zod, Faora, is that how you say it? Faora, and the whole Zod's crew. I don't understand their powers exactly. I'm not sure what they can and cannot do as just regular Kryptonians. We were never really shown, you know, if they actually had a supernatural ability on their own before they come to Earth. But it seems like they have no problem fighting Superman. You know, in that fight scene in Smallville, they haven't adapted to Earth's atmosphere or absorbed the sun's energy. And they're fighting Superman pretty much like no problem at all. You see Faora kind of jump really high, but come on, she's pretty much flying. But when her breather gets compromised, you can see her being affected. That shows us that they're not used to it yet. So what are their abilities exactly? Another thing I'm on the fence about is it's not really that hard to figure out who Superman is. Once Lois Lane went out of her way to uncover who he is, the fact that the world knows, and the whole world knows, they were told Lois Lane knows who Superman's identity is. It shouldn't be that hard to find him after that. Anybody can look up Lois's travel log. Oh, she went here, then she went to Kansas, and then she went to Smallville. Hey, isn't Smallville where the fight started? Yeah, that actually is. All it's going to take is one person to talk to Pete Ross, because he kind of has a big mouth. Told Lois Lane exactly where Clark Kent's family lives. Voila, you discovered who Superman's true identity is. And the fact that Superman also tells the military, I grew up in Kansas. Again, well, isn't Smallville where the fight started? Let's start there. I understand that this is not the movie's fault. This is just the territory that comes with Superman, so you gotta add that element of mystery and that dual identity. But Lois Lane did bring the police to Clark Kent's house, where Superman was standing on the porch as she's running to him, yelling, Clark.
I don't think they're interested in sharing this world.
Clark!
Okay, well, we could have done without that. That's a little bit more of suspension of disbelief than I think this movie needed. How did nobody hear Clark Kent when he went apeshit on Dude's truck? Cool shot, but nobody heard that? Really? Nobody heard it? Did he, like, slowly impale the logs into the truck? I hate putting it on the fence because it's a very powerful scene, but I think you get what I'm saying. One thing I've noticed that Zack Snyder likes to do, he sets us up for a very grounded movie. Like, this is what life is like on Earth if Superman were to happen on this Earth right now. But he exchanges that grounded level for a deep and powerful shot. That truck being, mangled up in the logs. Nobody heard that. That's leaving the grounded world for a second, showing us Superman's powers, then coming back to it. Another example of this is Clark Kent and the tornado. We know that Jonathan Kent would have been sucked up in that tornado. Like, he would have done the whole, and then straight up in the funnel. That doesn't happen. He gets encased by the tornado as it slowly passes him. This is another situation where Zack Snyder exchanges that grounded movie for a very artistic shot, and which I like, but I can see where a lot of people were iffy about that, where a lot of people were like, well, why didn't he just get sucked up in a tornado? I can understand both sides of the fence on that, which is why this is on the fence. I didn't even do that on purpose. I didn't even write that down. Clark Kent working at the Daily Planet, at least in the office. I don't like this. Not for this movie. I think this movie has changed enough things to where we don't have to have Clark Kent actually work in the Daily Planet. I can understand them wanting to bring him to the Daily Planet because that's part of Superman Clark Kent mythology. That's fine. But maybe making him more of a outsourced journalist. He travels the world and sends his articles back. I think that would have been a little bit more believable for this world because, again, these are journalists. These are people that we respect in this movie, like Perry White, for example. They have to know that Clark Kent is Superman. They have to know. We live in a world where these are highly intelligent people and they're journalists. They can connect the dots realistically. The previous films, nobody connected the dots, and Christopher Reeve was doing a great job, playing the befuddling Clark Kent that we got. This movie doesn't have that. Henry Cavill is not playing that Clark Kent. And I think with him not playing that Clark Kent, we could have taken him out of working in the Daily Planet. I think that would have been a better fit for this Clark and for this situation. Just my opinion. Let me know what your thoughts are on that below, please, because I'm actually curious to see how you think they should have handled it, or if you think they handled it just fine. The next snap heard around the world. Man, such a powerful moment and a very controversial moment. I guess most powerful moments are controversial, but much like many of Zack Snyder's decisions, people either love it or they hate it. I had no issue with it. I thought it was a very powerful scene. But a good friend of mine who had never seen this movie before, I was watching it with him, not for this review, this was quite a few years back. He was really into the movie the whole time. And then when that happened, he goes, a neck snap? It came down to a neck snap? I witnessed him actually bothered by this, not because Superman doesn't kill. No, that wasn't his point. His point was, well, couldn't he have snapped his neck like way earlier in the film? Okay, I can see that argument. And this is where a lot of people kind of misinterpret what Superman is in this movie. Superman didn't want to kill Zod. He wanted to save him. He wanted to save everybody. And he was forced. He had no choice but to kill Zod before Zod killed these people. That's why you get that powerful scream right after he does it. It tortured him to do this. And for the life of me, I will defend this scene forever. And anytime somebody has a problem with it, one of my friends, I will sit there and explain it to them in detail. And if they still don't get it, well, then they just a little bitch. I'm not calling you a bitch, just people that don't get it. My point is that I see the double-edged sword with this, and this whole Superman doesn't kill thing. Just shut the fuck up. That's a stupid argument. And apparently nobody in DC is allowed to kill, but everybody in Marvel can kill anybody they want, and it's cool. We all knew I had to do it. Moving right along to what I don't like about this movie. Once again, I'm being nitpicky here. These are actually petty points. These are petty points I dive deeper into, but they are pretty impactful petty points, if you will. We got the black Superman suit, and most people, including myself, didn't even realize it. Yeah, I didn't realize the first few times I watched this movie that Superman was wearing the black suit during that kind of dream sequence or whenever Zod was in his head sort of thing. The choice to make the sun set behind him, it just made me think his suit was just darker than normal, and I didn't really pay that much attention to it. Now that I know it's a black suit, I can totally recognize it, but at the time, I just thought it was a result of the sunset behind him. The law-defying physics in this movie in particular, and the way that this scene was actually shot, this could have been done a little bit better in my opinion, where Lois Lane falls out of the plane, she's falling, then the ships collide, and it turns into the singularity, which creates a black hole, and everything starts, getting sucked up into the black hole. Everything except Lois Lane, who was clearly falling, and she's falling, and then Superman grabs her, and the second he grabs her, he has a hard time getting out of the grips of this black hole thing going on. That doesn't really make sense, like, at all. With that sort of physics, it would have made sense for Superman just to wait on Earth to catch her. I think it could have been resolved easily with her falling out of the plane, and then when the ships collide, she's falling, and then they could have had a nice shot of her, like, flipping back up, then slowly being taken back up, and then Superman saves her. That would have made a lot more sense. And the last thing I'm going to say about what I don't like about this movie, and again, this is just a petty point, I don't think Jor-El has to do the, you know, this whole hand motion to show us that, you know, he's opening the doors.
Did you do that?
Yes.
We get it, his consciousness, he's controlling the ship. He could have just looked at the door and it opened. This is a little too much for me. He doesn't, a little unnecessary. See how petty I'm being? I love this fucking movie. So overall, this is my favorite Superman movie of all time. I don't understand why this is on everybody's top shelf and why it's so controversial, except for the fact that people like Christopher Reeve. This movie was beautifully done. We get to dive into a great origin story of Clark Kent, Superman, and learn more about not just him, but the people that raised him, the people that surround his lives, how he affects them, how they find him. We get a more conscious, sensitive Lois Lane, somebody who's actually smart and intelligent. And I would also argue to say that Perry, Jenny, and that creepy guy from The Office, I think they know that Clark Kent is Superman. There's a little hush about it. My opinion, no proof to go on that, but just what I think. Hands down, one of my favorite comic book movies of all time, and the best Superman movie I've seen to date. And for all these reasons, I'm giving this movie an A+.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Oh, man, that was a long review. Whew. But I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I was able to do this review watching all the other Superman movies leading up to this. It really made me respect this movie a lot more and respect the history that came before it and how they paid homage to those movies in this movie, but in a different way, in a not so obvious way. But this ends my live action Superman series, and my Batman series is done. So that means Batman v Superman is next, and I'm even more intimidated to do that one because unlike this movie, I actually do have some genuine concerns or, you know, critiques about that one. But we'll get to that in my next review, and it's probably going to drop hopefully within a week, guys. I know I've been dropping my videos only once a week now. This whole coronavirus thing, man, it's really got everybody's lives turned upside down. I've had to spend a lot more time to try to keep my head above water because I was out of a job like that. But I still make sure that I'm trying to focus on Film Trigger, at least to get out one video a week right now until the world starts spinning again. So I hope you guys understand, and if you do, thank you so much for sticking around with me. And when the world does start spinning again, more Film Trigger content will be coming out, but this is still a very important part of my life, and I'm going to continue bringing you content in whatever way that I can. So thank you guys so much for sticking around with me. Be sure to check out some more of my videos, and as always, stay trigger happy, my friends. Peace.